Welcome to Nameless Debate Radio, where radioactivity is contagious. You can join us in broadening our minds on the Nameless Debates Discord via the link below, and even feature here yourself, if you've got what it takes.
Leave me and let me just go.
Hold on, let him speak.
Okay, so I'll finish out my point here. So it seems to be the case, given my experience, that you really can't verify anything for 100%, right? And I think that's true. I think that
you can verify things 100%.
Hold on. It depends. Hold on. Just let me.
Guys, let's
just focus on
so that I can make a determination. Now, can you please all be quiet and let him speak for 1 second, please? Let's
just focus on empiricism for the moment, right? So when we're talking about Quranic canon, by all means, given my understanding, we're talking about empiricism. So given empiricism, right, in this instance, you're really not going to be able to know for 100% what words mean what for 100%. You're going to be going off of a lot of linguists' studies on it. You're going to be going off of a lot of experience given the historical context.
Would you like me to tell you why I think it's problematic to use this, to not limit the range of this scope? Like, the reason that I say there's an acceptance...
Dude, we may... Hold on.
Are you fucking kidding?
Hold on, mate. Hold on. So, we may agree with... Hold on. We may, like regardless of, like, whether what you're saying is true, I just want to finish... Like, I want to hear his, like, full point. Please.
So,
I understand it's frustrating for you guys. Dude, so I understand it's frustrating for you guys. Like, I totally get that.
Alright, fine.
And you guys are welcome.
Go ahead, dude.
So I just want to make sure.
I get it. Let him finish.
Yeah, because like I have not heard his full point. You guys have. That's the difference.
Yeah, I understand. Go ahead, dude. Say it again.
So when you're discussing something, having this kind of criteria that is actually true, right? It's true that you can't know anything for 100%. But when you make that the criterion in the discussion, I think that you're being dishonest, right? And I'll tell you why I think you're being at least a little bit dishonest. Contextually speaking, you're not being dishonest in the fact that you're propagating misinformation that per se, right? But what you're doing is you're creating a criterion intentionally that your opponent cannot reach, right? So at least seemingly can't reach. So if you define it within scientific verification, then what you'll find is that, you can pretty much get to as close as a Quranic canon through the scientific method. Hold on, through the scientific method, you can get as close to a Quranic canon as pretty much any other literary work, right? So, like for instance, you can read into a scientific book, right? And you can read Charles Darwin. And you can look at the context historically and you can understand what he meant by that word or what this word means or whatever. And you come to some conclusions about exactly what he meant, right? Not an approximation, not kind of obfuscating over certain words that may have been used in the literary work, but you actually understand, given induction, given the scientific method, what he actually precisely meant by that as close as you can without actually asking Darwin himself. And in the same way, you can look at the Quran and you can assess it through induction. You can look at the historical factors. You can talk to many linguists. You can talk to people who actually speak the language of which it was originally written in and who have looked at the original holy text. And you can come to some conclusive ideas about the Quran, what it means to be a Muslim. And through that, you can exclude certain people from being a Muslim and include certain people from being a Muslim. And the criterion is completely legitimate, given the same criterion that you get to global warming, or any other scientific thing of which you affirm rather than affirming some other worldview.
So I'd like to say something, right? So you talked about like people like having a standard, right? That's like hard for people to reach. I mean, like people may do that, but I don't see the problem in that, right? Because like, I mean, that's like what people believe. So if they want like that addressed, then they have to be honest to what they actually think, right?
You see, Sure. It's fine to honestly, just to be clear, it is fine to honestly probe somebody about their Quranic knowledge. But my problem comes is when you kind of get this idea of
it's like Quranic knowledge, but I mean, like, I'll go with that for now.
Sure. I mean, I'm saying like it's fine to try to analyze somebody on their worldview and see if they can communicate it, you know, effectively. Sure. I'm fine with that.
Well, I mean, like, it's not even about them communicating it effectively. I think it's just about, like, you know, hey, X person wants to, like, talk about Y thing. You know, why can't, like they just do so within the terms that's, like, agreed. I mean, I think that that's, like, a good thing. And if somebody, like, here, I'll give you an example, right? In a sense, you could say I use deductive reasoning to reach what I call the arcane, right? And so the arcane in this sense is the fundamental substance that is. It is basically. Now, if somebody wants to argue that, like, that's not true, right? I would expect them to, like, address what I actually think. Not like I wouldn't lower my standards based off of, like, other people. I think that'd be a mistake.
Okay.
Cool.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Look, really, the problem comes when you're applying this idea.
I just want to say that I suspect, and maybe I'm wrong, like, maybe that was not what they were saying, but I suspect that, like, they were getting frustrated that they didn't think that you accepted that.
Sure, I accept that. But look, the reality here is the problem that I have is that when they create this criterion and they're not, and they're kind of suspending this idea of scientific verification, of which they accept pretty much all the time in their life, right? Like the same means by which they get their smartphones and use them actively, and are talking on Discord right now. That's based on, like, approximating knowledge. So what you're saying is induction has kind of given me an idea. So, like, when that's your level of verification that you actively, when you actively, I'm not saying every conversation has to be cloaked in this. I'm fine with talking about more novel concepts like, hey, you know, is X, Y, and Z, you know, like we can talk about, like, things purely philosophically, but the problem comes when we're talking about.
I think that that's like I think that's pertinent to like establishing the scientific method as, like, an actual process that's good to use.
I full stop agree with that, right? But the problem is that they were making a scientific claim, and they tried to make nonsensically a scientific claim, a philosophical claim. If we're talking about Quranic canon, and you are coming at it from a worldview similar to mine, seemingly, it seems most rational to just define it through a criterion of what do these words mean historically, how can we gauge them, you know, all those things. And once we get to some sort of approximation, we can refine that. We see if we're wrong in some areas. We can constantly improve. That's what the scientific method aims to do. And it's all based on induction. And I think it's perfectly sufficient. And I think that if you're coming to certain conclusions about that,
you're referring, like, I'm sorry, but I think you're referring to the historical method, not the scientific method.
Sure. Maybe I am. I might be making a mistake categorically.
I think that probably, like, in their minds was a big point of contention.
Sure, maybe. I don't see why, but anyways, it's
because the two methods are different. So if you're saying, like, if you're talking about one method, right, and like most people recognize that as, like, this other method, right, you can see how that would lead to problems.
Sure, maybe. I would rather talk about the ideas, but regardless,
I understand, but, like, how people communicate is like
with established definitions. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like how people communicate, like, that's how they understand ideas, you know.
Sure, yeah. But this should be held to a higher standard, right? Because you should want to understand even if they're using an off-balance definition, or maybe they don't understand the colloquial usage. If they have an idea in their head, they don't know how to quite communicate, or they haven't read the established literature, you should just ask them what they mean by that instead of just jumping on them and saying, you're such a fucking moron, you're such an idiot, right? That's actually how you have a productive conversation. But regardless, the point I'm trying to make here is it's a really simple point. And it's just that it seems to me to be most advantageous to look at the Quranic canon through a lens of what makes sense in terms of the inductive kind of conclusions that you'd get. It's really, it doesn't seem sensical to analyze any sort of like externalized object like a book that has been written through this lens of, can we know for 100% certainty? Because then you're just going to have to talk to a presuppositionalist, right? Because then they'll say they know 110% sure what that means, and and I know because I've had personal experience or some bullshit like that, right?
Yeah.
If you don't want to get into a discussion like that, then you're just going to have a discussion about the scientific method, and that will probably bear more fruitful results, because you may find that there are some issues with the word.
The historical method. I would just prefer you say that, because like that's
the historical method, sure.
Yeah, I think that like most people recognize, it seems like what you're talking about as the historical method, and so like I think you'd get further in communicating if you said that. Now I want to know like what explicitly I don't want to say like that you were trying to establish by talking about like Islam, like but more like
this conversation could have been about anything, right?
Why
it could have been.
I'm more interested in like right now. I'm more interested in like why did that conversation happen?
Just to be clear, this conversation could be about anything. It could be established scientific documents. It could be about even in some cases, to be clear here, because this kind of gets more complicated with this claim, but some more fantastical literary works with more layered meanings. This could be applied to a couple different things, and I think that it's just really important to understand that like it seems to be the case that in all reasonability that you can say certain things are true of being a Muslim, and there are some things that are true of not being a Muslim, and having those criterion established, there's nothing dispermissible about that. People who say that are just literal atheist meme lords. They're not worth contending with. I'm sorry, but that's my honest opinion on it, and I think that's why I got it on the discussion.
I don't care if you shit on bad atheists, but my question is like, so I guess I'm a little confused. Like, what do you like in this example of like what these people like are saying in your mind, right? What like what explicitly is that?
What explicitly is what?
Because I guess I'm I agree with you, right? That like if you want to set up a criteria for like what counts as like a true Muslim, and then like you want to like follow that to like see where it leads based off of the evidence, like I completely agree with that, but I don't understand like what you're using that to then argue against.
I'm arguing against this kind of idea that they're defining all this person said was that there are things that are true of actual Muslims, and there are some people who profess to be Muslims who aren't actually Muslims because they don't meet the criterion, right? They don't actually follow the holy book, right? They don't actually meet Quranic canon.
Okay, but I want to. That's enough, because I understand what your point is.
And they were arguing against that person, and it was just really, really.
Well,
it was super bad.
So I didn't hear what they said, but my position is that with regard to how people act, I don't accept that you really could say that there is a, in quotes, true Muslim or true Christian because of how broad this is in terms of what influences people's behavior. And my concern is behavior. So
sure. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting perspective. I really took issue with it. And afterwards, I'm fucking around with them and shit. And when you came in, they were like, Insync, the thing he does is he just always talks over me, and he uses his mod power to just dominate the discussion and all that shit. And as soon as he was gone, they didn't want to talk with me, right? Because their little armor was off. They didn't have Insync here datting them around. So, as soon as he's gone, he's really, he might be one of the worst interlocutors I've ever had the displeasure of speaking with on Discord. He's just not very good at this.
No, I strongly disagree with that. Like, I think Insync is excellent at talking to like people about ideas.
I think he just can't stand the fact that I'm smarter than him, right?
Yeah, I don't accept that. Like, I mean, granted, I don't know you that well, but I really don't accept that. Just because like that to me would mean you'd have to meet a high threshold. But the point is that so I think.
Well, just to be clear, every discussion I've had with him, I've won, right?
Yeah, I mean, so in full disclosure, I've not listened to any of your discussions with him, but like I am highly suspect of that claim. But I'm not gonna argue. I'm not gonna argue about that because it's not really worth anything. Because like I obviously like trust him a lot based off of my experience, and like I mean, so it doesn't like matter to really say like, oh well, you're like I guess I don't see where the conversation could lead in that regard, but I will just say like I think the Insync is very developed, and I don't think he has a lot of patience for like things that he doesn't accept. Like not as much as say like Vlad, but like he still lacks a lot of like patience for that. And so I think that I think that that's like important to keep in mind when you talk to him. But I don't think that there's anywhere else that this can go. So if you accept what I've said, then I don't really see like what's left of the discussion.
Sure, whatever.
Cool. Glad this was resolved. Now I'm gonna go on the other call.
All right, go ahead.
You folks are being ordered not to eat each other.
All right, we'll try.
Can't promise anything.
Because like I don't want to actually have to like use admin powers if I don't have to. So anyway, I'm going.
I'm eat all these niggas once you go on.
I mean, one you should probably clean up the mess in our main chat that I know I'm contributing to.
Maybe stop recording too.
I would argue that someone that is intentionally just trying to preach and not actually trying to engage would actually be in violation of the intent of this.
Yeah, so because I was sort of shitposting in that, I'd rather get somebody outside of that to do so.
I think everyone was shitposting it because it's
a little bit, but there were definitely people that were doing it less than I. I just mean in like fairness, it'd be better if somebody else did it.
Oh sure. What do you want me to do?
Oh, so basically, oh god,
I mean, like, okay, like,
so RC99G is like, as they put it, he's essentially preaching, which isn't like very productive.
He's preaching. And look, I know I'm being a cunt to him. However, like I'm intentionally, like I have no respect for anyone like that. And I will treat them as such. Until if someone chooses to not engage as a human, I'll treat them not as a human. Essentially, there's a debate I'm willing to have, but in terms of mutual respect and social contracts, there's a social contract on a server like this. He is violating that social contract. He is preaching. He has no intent to actually engage with anyone except for to spruik his opinion. He's not interested in any kind of exchange of ideas.
Yeah, no. I totally accept that because like I've from what I've witnessed, like,
And he's just going to every time he's
no,
on,
no, no.
he's
So,
just
so,
going to
so, like,
super inflame
so,
the chat.
so, hold on. So, yeah, no, I totally accept that. I totally accept that. That's why I gave him the tag server troll, because I don't accept that he's like being a serious person. But that said, I agree that it probably should be cleaned up.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, because people are just going to dumpster on him. And
I mean, but like,
Yeah.
isn't that half the fun?
Yeah,
I
but
agree.
it's not always good for the server. That's the thing.
yeah, no, I'm that's kind of why, like, it's not good for the server, and I know I'm engaging in it. I mean, if I was in a staff position, I wouldn't personally. I'm in staff positions on other servers, but because I have the freedom to engage here, like, like I know I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing, but I struggle to help myself against people like that. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, with me, I just get like, whenever I say go in like a Nazi community, because like I've spent time like like not just like dumpstering on people like that, because like they don't like agree with my opinion, obviously, but like I've spent a lot of time studying shit like that, and so whenever I go in communities such as those, I tend to like just be like very demeaning toward the like
I mean,
toward
like,
like the community,
well, that's
because
kind of
like
the point, right?
it's like I genuinely have like very minimal respect for them, because
Well, that's the point,
that like
because respect
the
has to be
steps they would
mutual.
take to like arrive at those conclusions are like really intellectually lazy.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point. So not only can you attack them that way, but you're also engaging people that have no mutual respect for you. And I guess that's my biggest problem. And that's why, like, I see this guy no different to a flat earther, no different to the West Pro Baptist Church, no different to a NatSoc. He's arguably synonymous with them and not worthy of like actual like engagement.
Oh, I thought the Earth was flat though.
It is
Go away,
funny
Sherry.
No,
because
it's
like
an octagonal Rubik's cube. Okay.
It's a dodecahedron.
No. The
No, it's a
universe is
donut.
infinite. The universe is infinitely flat.
No, it's
No,
a donut.
Go study non-Euclidean geometry for a while.
Well, have you ever played the game Minecraft?
Yeah, I'm
No, 'cause
not.
it's
I'm not
retarded.
engaging with you, dude. Like, I remember.
Oh no, I'm kidding.
I remember your position on abortion. You're silly. It's a reason
Wait,
you have
can
those
someone
tags.
fill in
all
on his position on
right.
abortion?
I'm not gonna get into this, but what I want to talk about, which is more important,
Yeah.
is I do want to mention that so I have actually like I have actually spent extensive time before like I came to these conclusions, talking to people like, say, National Socialist, Identitarian, blah blah blah, insert whatever. It's kind of like it is interesting though, because like to an extent, right? I think that there are a lot of people, and I've had this argument that like with one of my good friends who's basically been like he's basically had the position of like, fuck these people, I don't have the patience for this shit, which is fine, but like I have made the argument to him and convinced him so that like there are like legitimate reasons to like talk to these people, insofar as like if you are better, right, and you spend enough time, you can like convince a lot of these people that like this stuff is silly.
But at the same time, like, you need a point of willingness to engage. Like, those people need to already be willing to engage, right?
Yeah,
to actually convince someone actually has to be
agree
willing
with
to
that.
engage and exchange ideas.
Right, but mate, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. But like, it's worth pointing out. So it's worth pointing out that people. So it is true. People have to be willing to engage, but you can also do things to get them to be willing to engage.
That is possible. Yes. However.
Yeah.
There's a question of, I guess, like if you want to look at it through a pragmatic kind of position, there's a question of, how much effort does that take? How practical
Yeah,
or
but
pragmatic is it that
exactly,
we do?
exactly.
How many people can I actually affect doing it otherwise? And by mocking him, so the concept of more traditional debates is actually about an audience debate, right? Not actually convincing the person you're debating against, but having an influence on the audience. And this is where I would look to someone like someone that, for example, in like the kind of atheism theism debates, right? The most arguably influential debater in the last kind of like 10, 20 years was Hitchens, and he engaged in rhetoric and far more than he engaged in just like you know what I mean? Than anything else. And he specifically engaged with mocking ideas, and that's what I would feel like. When people take these kind of extreme positions, mocking is the most effective tool.
Yeah, but like that goes to my point earlier that like the reason why I generally mock Nazis in Nazi communities is because it is not worth my time to spend engaging with them insofar as what I could accomplish if I did something else that was more productive to my life.
Sure, and I'm mocking this person here because I know, one, there are other Muslims on the server, and there are other religious people on the server, and there's other people that are sympathetic to respecting him. And by mocking him, I can, I would say that arguably is the most productive way to engage with him.
Really?
Though I also think it's very like contextual. So like in terms of the utility. So for example, right, you and him could be in like say a different place in the server. Like say you were in Debate Coliseum, right?
Mm-hmm.
The expectation is that like you would be serious insofar as debating him and like not do that in general.
Yes, but he's in main chat.
Right, which is my point.
Yeah, so it's in a non-general, right, and that's my point. Is that he's in a place where he's not required to be serious, so therefore I'm not required to be serious.
Yep, exactly.
I understand everything in terms of communication is contextual.
Yeah, no. I don't think we disagree.
No, of course not. But yeah, and when he's like, I don't know.
That's why
his position is so antithetical to mine that I do not even believe there is an ability to engage.
Oh, it's pretty silly. Like for example, well, actually, I won't give this example, but I do have a personal example in my life that like really illustrates this. What's more important is
look,
it was sort of funny how like I sort of manufactured like a sort of love dynamic between me and him. Because you know his name is totally Sarah, and like we're totally having sex on Friday, me and her. And in sync, Sammy and Runan, like they were all watching, so clearly it must have happened. All right. Well, in any case, I'm gonna go for now.
All right, so
take care.
Regard. Oh, also, Runan, you did hear that, and you know what? You are my witness, right?
Well, I am.
I mean, maybe you were, but you weren't like an invited witness. Runan, and InSync and Sammy, those are the ones that I was like inviting to come watch, because basically what happened was we were like watching Netflix. We were actually watching the second Castlevania season, and in any case, like in a heat of passion, me and Sarah just started like furiously like banging, right? And you know, me being like somebody that likes to have no bases left, right? No bases that like I don't have covered. I asked if my good pals could watch, and so we eventually decided, okay, well, we're all gonna watch, but we're gonna form like a triangle formation as we do so. And in this case, because of course we all recognize Sarah as being a pathological liar, we decided, like, you know, if it comes out that Sarah denies our true love of passion, we would correct that for the public. The people need the truth.
All right.
I mean, it's all recorded, so
Yeah, no. It's part of the truth, right? So we have established objective truth beyond even the arcane. Anyhow, I'm gonna go.
Yes. Take care, man.
I'm glad that I heard that.
I have no idea what's going on. So, W, are you willing to try and defend his worldview?
All right. I'm guessing his worldview is
I'm talking about Haytham.
Yeah, and I'm guessing his worldview is being Muslim, or is it?
No,
are you talking about?
He's not just Muslim, dude. So that's like saying defending the worldview of being Christian. But would you equivocate like a reformed like version of Protestantism with the Westbury Baptist Church, or fundamentalist Catholicism with like cultural Catholicism?
Okay, so what's his worldview? That Islam can't be reformed?
He's basically like I believe he said he was a fundamentalist, like Wahhabist, basically. And like he's basically fundamentalist, and he's fundamentalist in an extremist and incredibly traditionalist conservative way, basically.
Okay.
And in a sense, like his position is basically that, and he's here to preach. Like he functions the same way, I guess, like Mormons or like the Westbury Baptist. I don't know. I guess he's a more polite version of the Westbury Baptist Church, is how I would put it.
All right.
More polite. He's not screaming that I'm a faggot, but he's telling me that I'm going to hell and being gay is bad. So.
Yeah. So he's saying being gay is bad.
Yes, without actually providing any argumentation. He's just saying it. It's just in his opinion because his belief is objective and true, which is demonstrably silly.
Yes, I agree. But let me think. I think if you accept a presupposition, I
Of
might be his presupposition being that hadith or what people claim that the prophet that Muhammad said is true and should be followed.
I mean, why would I accept that as a presupposition?
That's the only way, because that's the presupposition he's using.
That's nonsense. Like that's logically nonsense.
Yeah. Well,
and
I mean,
Thank you for listening. Like, share, subscribe, and join us in the Nameless Debates Discord. We hope to see you there.